Not waste your time. Let's get started. Can you hear me clear? Can you hear me clear? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly. Just want to make sure, and you can see the screen. Cool. Good. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Secret to Engage in Interviews. My name is Icy. I am the host and the founder of the Sitdown UK. It's a platform I've been running for about 7 years now. And the whole aim of it is to unpack the stories of inspiring individuals, whether it's through entertainment, business, whether they're in sports, beauty, whatever they are in, as long as their story is impactful and inspiring. And so I've been interviewing people for 7 years. I've clocked up about 100 plus interviews with the likes of Bianca Saunders, the international menswear designer, Mo Gilligan, triple BAFTA award-winning comedian, Shola Amma, legendary songstress, Zizi Mills, the Grace Ladoja, Jake Isaac, Babatunde, Eddie Caddy, so many people. And over those years, I've learned so many kind of techniques into having conversations. And I think with the sit down, what I want to make sure we do is that we are not just having our events and having our interviews, but we're taking what we're learning from it and we're passing it on. We're giving that information to other people, just so that anybody else who wants to kind of venture into that territory in terms of presenting, hosting, interviewing, they can have the skills to do it as well. So yeah, doing that for 7 years, but I also do workshop facilitation. I've been doing that for 10 years, and I have a diploma in learning and development. So that's what I come with today. I come to give you information based on those kind of foundations. So I hope that helps for today. Now, what we're going to focus on is, I'll show you this in a second, is one of the secrets that I've found that really helps for an interactive and engaging conversation. One of the big things, it's almost rolled into two. It's two rolled into one. And what it is active listening and the ability to read the room. Active listening and the ability to read the room. If you can combine, if you take those two elements and you combine them into one and you take that into your conversation, you have the ability to have an A1 conversation. Okay, so here is your first task. All right, you're going to have a look at this image on the screen, and I would like you to write in the chat what you see. So have a look at the image on the screen. Tell me what you see. A woman. Okay. What type of woman? Old, young? What do you see? A very chic woman. Yajidi says 2 women, one old, one young. Okay. This is what I want you to look out for. There are 2 women in that picture. There's an old woman and there's a young woman. So Yajidi, you've been able to see both of them. Zacharias, can you see both of the women? Shia, can you see both of the women? And let me know if I'm saying your name wrong, if it's Shay. Apologies. Okay, Zacharias says I don't. Okay. All right, keep looking, keep looking. Shia, okay, cool. What can you see, Shia? Can you see both the old woman and the young woman? So there are in fact 2 women in this picture. There is the old woman and there's the young woman. So the young woman, if you see where my cursor is, this is her eyelash. This is her nose. This is the young woman. And then this here at the bottom is her chin. This is her ear. This is the young woman I'm talking about. And this is some type of hat. All right. Now, if we go to find and look at the old woman, Or the old woman, this here is her mouth. Oh, you can't see the cursor? Oh, sorry. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Hold on. Can you see it now at all? Yeah. Can't see the cursor. Okay, no worries. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see on either side is some black, kind of black fuzzy thing. Just above that is her mouth. It might be hard to see, but don't worry. You can check it out afterwards. And it will show, you can just, if you put it on Google, just say old woman, young woman, illusion. Well, basically, let's try and do it with this one. What can you see here? There should be two animals you can see in this picture. A duck and a rabbit. Good, good. Can everyone see the duck and the rabbit? Rabbit and a duck. Good, good, good. Good. Okay, awesome. So this is a clear example of, in a conversation, if you want to really have an engaging, interactive, impactful conversation, you need to be looking for what is there and what is not there. Okay? At the same time, you need to be looking at what is there and what is not there. So with the first image, even though you could only see the old woman, you need to be aware and be looking for the younger woman in the picture. Even in this image, if you could only see the rabbit, you need to see the rabbit, but you also need to be aware that there's actually another image there, which is a duck. And when you're having a conversation, you need to be actively listening to what is being said, but also paying attention to what is not being said. Okay, does that make sense so far? All right, just give me a yes in the chat. All right. So this is one of the key ways that you can have a very engaging conversation. Pay attention to what is being said, but pay even more attention to what is not being said. And a lot of the times, what is not being said is being spoken through body language. It's being spoken through pauses. It's being spoken through hand movements and gesticulation. It's being spoken through intonation, the lowering and the raising of your voice. And so a skilled interviewer has to pay attention to two things: what is being said, what is not being said, what is being seen, what is not being seen. Okay. Here's a quote for you to make it even more real. It says, in an interpersonal context, active listening aims to minimize the impact of our prejudices and practice our patience, while at the same time leading us to bypass what we had originally planned to say. Let me say that again. In an interpersonal context, active listening, it aims to minimize the impact of our own prejudices and practice our patience. Let me stop there. That is such a key line. Why? Because active listening is going to require you to be selfless. Okay? Sometimes when you're interviewing someone, you are so focused on the fact that you're going to interview them that you have to ask all your questions and lead them down the path that you've already laid out. Whereas active listening, it minimizes what you want to do and it enables you to practice patience. Now, guys, feel free, if you do have a question, hey, please just throw it in the chat. Feel free. I want to make this as interactive as possible. If you have any questions or you say stop there, feel free. So active listening, it enables you and it forces you to be patient. Why? Because you're patiently hearing what that person is saying and understanding also what they're not saying. Again, it's a balancing act. The bottom part of that quote says, while at the same time leading us to bypass what we had originally planned to say. When I had one of my first interviews, I think that interview was JME. It was JME, the grime rapper, artist. And I remember I had a list of questions. These are the things I said I had to ask. But through the course of the conversation, there were certain points where he dwelled on things more than I thought he would, where he took the audience along a certain path that I had not planned. And I got nervous. I was sweating on stage. I was looking at my team like, oh my gosh, time is going to run out. And after that event, one of my biggest takeaways was you don't have to stick to the questions. You can allow, if you're actively listening to what the person is saying, you can allow new questions to form, new topics to form. You can actually allow a new journey of conversation if you're good enough to listen to what the person is saying and have a follow-up question for the things that they didn't say. Okay. So these are, like I said, two superpowers that you can use, and these are ones that I'm using more and more. And there was a video I saw on the weekend that really highlighted this. So did anybody see this interview? Stephen Bartlett and Mr. Beast. Anybody a fan of what's that? Diary of a CEO. That's what it's called. Diary of a CEO. Anybody a fan? Welcome those who have just joined us as well. Deborah, Michelle, Rebecca, Dea in the building. Anybody watch? Did anybody see this interview? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a yes. Give me a no in the chat. Not a fan, but Zacharias said, not a fan. Zacharias, why are you not a fan? Not that you have to be, but because that's very interesting. For some people, he is Marmite. You watch it occasionally, but didn't see this interview. Okay, cool. So Mr. Beast, probably one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, and Diary of a CEO. Stephen Bartlett has, interviewed countless individuals, really unpacking their story. But I saw something this weekend, and I thought, did he use active listening in this situation? Did he use the power of observation in this situation? Let's see. So I'm going to play you this video, this clip, and I want you to, from your perspective, tell me what emotions does it make you feel? Okay. What emotions does it make you feel?
Cry asking you to do your homework.
A lot of things. She would cry because I wouldn't put money away. When we started making money, she thought it was too risky. And I mean, the thing is,
Let me restart that.
Life before YouTube. Like my earliest memories are basically when I started making videos.
You said earlier you don't talk about your dad much.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me about it, but why don't you talk about your father much?
Don't worry about it.
I know your mum has spoken about him before.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a tumultuous relationship.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have the best relationship. I mean, that's a topic for another day. Honestly, kind of a sour way to start it off, but yeah, my mom is great. I love my mom.
She used to cry.
Okay. Let me write in the chat, what were some of the emotions you felt just from that small clip about what he said about his father and that conversation? How did it make you feel? So just write that in the chat and let me know. Uncomfortable. That's it. That is the word I've been actually searching for. Deborah says, a little uncomfortable as it felt clear he wasn't prepared to open up about that. Yejide says, sorry for him. A lot of people say uncomfortable. Yes. Deborah, you're right. As a viewer, there was an element of feeling uncomfortable because even if you look at what he just said, he said you'd mentioned it before that you don't talk about your dad. And you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but why don't you talk about your dad? It was almost like I know that's your barrier and I know that's what you've put up, but I want to go around that. And if he had been actively listening the first time he had mentioned it, I feel he would have seen that maybe this is not a no go. This is a no go area. I'm going to play it again, and I want you to pay attention to body language now. What does Mr. Beast's body language tell you about this question? Okay, what does his body language tell you about this question?
Homework.
A lot of things. She would cry because I wouldn't put my life before YouTube. Like my earliest memories are basically when I started making videos.
You said earlier you don't talk about your dad much.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me about it, but why don't you talk about your father much?
Don't worry about it.
I know your mum has spoken about him before.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a tumultuous relationship.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have the best relationship. I mean, that's a topic for another day. Honestly, kind of a sour way to start it off, but yeah, my mom is great. I love my mom.
She used to cry asking you to do your homework.
A lot of things. She would cry because I wouldn't put money away. When we started making money, she thought it was too risky. And I mean, the thing is, nothing she would say was unreasonable, right? Looking back at it, she was perfectly reasonable in what she was doing. I would just.
Cool. Yeah. Tell me something about the body language. What kind of things or signals? Again, we're looking at active listening, but also looking for the things we see and we don't see. What did you notice from his body language about that question and how it made him feel? So throw that in the chat. Deborah says he was signaling in no, and we can move on with his hand gestures. He's like, you know what? We can discuss this another time. 100%. And he was leaning away. Yes. Jide said he was leaning away. He used hand gestures to signal no. And again, this is why I really feel that this skill is undervalued. But if you get it wrong, you can see what it produces. Okay, this particular clip went viral on was it on YouTube Shorts and a bit on TikTok for Stephen Bartlett pushing when he shouldn't have. And sometimes as an interviewer, the only reason you're pushing when you shouldn't is because you have placed as an importance your own particular desire for this interview. Zachariah says, I'm not a fan of his interview style. Nonetheless, you can set boundaries around the interview, but if the interviewee were to trust the interviewer, they could have opened up a little later. Trust. Trust is one of the biggest things that you have to establish with the person that you're interviewing. And let's say, for example, they haven't spoken about this before coming onto the platform. If in the interview they express that this area is a hard point for me, you need to put your own ego down as an interviewer and listen to that. Michelle said it's about having good emotional intelligence and connecting to the signals the interviewee is giving. Oof. Michelle, you better just come and take over this whole thing. It's about good emotional intelligence and connecting to the signals the interviewer is giving. That is so on point. To override those signals is to place your purpose as more important, which is I need to get that viral moment. And some people, I feel they don't like Diary of a CEO or the way that Stephen Bartlett sometimes interviews, because it is geared towards getting a particular emotion. It's there to elicit a particular tearful, emotional moment that can be cut up, sliced on the table for social media and get virality. And sometimes that's not needed, or most times that's not needed, unless it's organic. And I think when I saw this clip, I felt that he was pushing against the barrier to get another side of Mr. Beast that people may not have seen. But as an interviewer, you have to be humble enough to say that maybe that moment is not for me. Maybe that moment is not for our platform, so I'm not going to push it. I'm going to actively listen to the way his voice is going up and down. I'm going to actively pay attention to the way he backs up from the table and the conversation. I'm going to actively pay attention to his hand gestures and movements that are almost waving away this moment, this conversation. And I'm going to leave it and I'm going to pivot and move on to something else. And I think that's so key. If you want to have impactful, engaging conversations, whether it's on your podcast, wherever it might be, the interviewee has to trust you. And the only way that they can trust you is if you are emotionally intelligent to connect with those signals and honor those signals. All right. I remember there's a time when I did an interview with Grace Ladoja. She is the founder of Metallic London, amazing creative director, managed Skepta. I think she still manages Skepta. And she got to a point where we were talking about her childhood. And the research that I had done had only found stuff about her father. I couldn't find anything about her mother. And so I asked her on the day at the show, in the interview, you've spoken a lot about your father. How about your mother? And she disclosed that her mum had passed away when she was very young. Now, there was a critical moment there, because was I to pursue down that road, or do I honor the sensitivity of it? And I remembered at the time I just asked her that question, and then I left it. I just left it. So I just literally said, "Oh, I didn't hear. I saw a lot about your dad, but not your mother." And then she spoke, and she herself voluntarily spoke about her passing away. She spoke about the impact of how deeply and fiercely her mum loved her, and now she in her life feels the effects of that love. It empowers her, it invigorates her to go and achieve anything, because she feels that she's loved, that she's special, that she can achieve because her mum, embedded that in her. Later on, when we did feedback and we asked the audience how things went, somebody in the audience had lost their mum, and that had connected her with Grace a bit more, that they shared that in common. So sometimes you just have to read the room, put your agendas aside, and let the guest lead. Let the guest lead, because honestly, if you let the guest lead, they will lead you in a place that you didn't even factor into the situation. And it's actually a better place to be than trying to shoehorn them and guide them along your own personal agenda. Zachariah says, "I'm not a fan of interviews that have their own set agendas for the interview, because in the moment it's about getting the best out of the interviewee." That is amazing. That is so true. Be confident enough in your interviewee that they can lead where they want to go. Okay, I'm going to play for you another video. This was an interview that was done, I think it was just over the weekend also. This is with Keke Palmer and Usher. Okay, so two people from the music industry. Keke Palmer, Usher, she's also through an entertainment industry, acting. They have a history. And now Keke, now they have a history because of the show that Usher did, and people were known for going there and being serenaded by Usher. Some people were married, some people were single. And so doing this interview is interesting already, because people are going to see both of them. Because I don't think she allowed him to dance. I can't remember the situation. But this is going to be an interesting interview, because it was a chance for them to just sit and talk. And a question came up, and I want you to tell me again. We're going to start off with, what emotions do you feel in that situation? And then I'm going to ask you about the body language. Right, so let's go.
Usher, I guess I gotta let you go. This is so sad. I've had a blast with you. Ooh, this is the last one for real.
Okay.
I've been playing around. I was trying to trick you just then. How old were you when you had your first kiss? And who was it? That's a sweet one we'll end on.
How old was I when I had my first kiss? That I actually intended to have.
Now wait a minute.
There was a couple of,
Okay. Well, you know what? That one's stupid. It's out. Your favorite song ever that you've done. Your favorite song of your.
Okay, in the chat, let me know, what were your emotions? What did you feel as a viewer watching just that segment with that question and his response? And Yejide, yeah, I'll answer you in a second. Deborah said, "Oop, good save." Good save. She pivoted well. Yeah. And you guys tell me, why do you think she pivoted? Could have gone dark very. Why do you think she pivoted? What was it that she actively heard? What was it that she saw? What was it that she heard? What was it that she saw? Throw that in the chat. And you did no, I don't send. You said, do you usually send questions to guests beforehand? I don't. I only send them topics so that they know what I'm going to talk about around. But I don't send them the questions. I do not want them to be media prepared. So no, I don't send them. I don't send them the actual questions. So you guys tell me, what was it? What was it about? So Zachariah says, because Usher's body language changed and what he said about that he intended. Yeah. Now look at how important this skill is. Okay. The current climate we have around Usher, at the backdrop of it, we have Diddy. Okay, if we're being honest and real, we have the context of Diddy. And so with Diddy being in jail and this whole thing about going to trial and everything, that his name has swelled around that, okay? Being taken advantage of. We've heard of the freak offs and all these type of things. So in an interview setting, what he says on this topic and this matter can be taken way out of context and spun in the media circus. Okay. So when he is repeating that question, he says, "Who is the first person I kissed that I intended?" He himself is mulling over, how am I actually gonna answer this question? Now, funnily enough, he is the one that introduced that intended part and made it playful. But Kiki is aware of the media circles, and him being a friend of hers, she made that pivot. She made that pivot in time. Was that, you know what? I can foresee what the media could do with this. Let's go right. Okay, let's go right. Now imagine she could have. He could have said more if pushed. Exactly. And and this is the thing. You have to be so attentive. This is why it's such a skill, because you're listening to what is being said, but you also have to read the room. Is he nervously saying that? Or is he joining in with the playfulness? Later on in that video, actually, if you go and watch the interview if you want to, you'll see he actually says that he actually carries on and wants to talk about it a bit more in a playful way. But it's such a key example of being able to actively listen to what's going on, read in the room, and as an interviewer, know when to pivot and know when to stay. Now imagine she pushed it on him, pressed it on him. No, come on, man. Tell us who. Tell us who. it will take a different turn, just like you guys said. And so again, this skill is just it's so undervalued, I feel, because everyone feels like, yeah, I'm listening. No, but are you actively listening? And when I say actively listen, to actively listen is to remain agile. I'll write that in the chat. I love that word because it's so key. Agile, agility. To actively listen is to place yourself as an interviewer with the ability to move left or move right when you need to. It's the ability to know that I've got 6 more questions, but the person just answered 4 of them in what they just said. Oh man, okay. I've got to pivot. I've got to remain agile. I've got to now have my backup questions that I had. To remain agile as an interviewer when you're actively listening. Let's say I do mine before an audience, an intimate audience, let's say about 60, 70 people. I've got to balance what I'm hearing the guests say, but also be aware. And a lot of you are the same if you have podcast listeners, YouTube followers, and they're watching what you're giving out. You've got to be attentive to what are the takeaways that I'm giving this audience. Is this actually feeding the audience? Or are we just doing, is it just gossip? Your thing might be a gossip thing. Cool. But if it's not, what are the gems? What are the takeaways? What are the practical things I'm giving my audience? And is this conversation giving it? Okay. So someone might say, okay, you might do an interview where people have come to hear about business advice, starting your own business, and you're interviewing a guest. And for the first 20 minutes, it's just been it's been jokes. You know the person, you're just catching jokes. But the audience are thinking, this is all well and good, but when are we going to get some actual practical tips? So active listening and being aware of your environment, reading body language, these are all things that feed into you being an agile interviewer. Okay, cool. Any questions so far? Throw them in the chat. Feel free. Zacharias, I like what you said there. Yeah, he said she took initiative to change the question. Definitely. All right. Well, if you have any questions, please let me know. No worries. Okay. So the main things I want us to continue to do is pay attention to body language. Body language doesn't lie. It is the one thing, especially because it's unconscious, body language doesn't lie. If I'm uncomfortable, I can only fake it for so long. If I'm squealing because of that question, I don't want to answer it. I can only fake it for so long. So pay attention. Is the person knee going up and down under the table? Are they tapping the table? High-level pacifiers. High-level pacifiers are things that people use to pacify themselves when they're stressed. So some people might be rubbing their ear. Some people might be touching their mouth constantly. Mr. Beast, he touches his mouth a lot. He laughs a lot when he's a bit nervous. The shaking of the leg. But we also notice the posture. When he didn't want to be involved in that question, he pulled back. He pulled back from the conversation. Okay. And then posture, eyes. Where are the eyes going? Yajide says, any tips on conducting a group or panel interview? Oh, okay. And is this job interview? Any tips on conducting a group or panel interview? And sorry about this. I really thought with this this setup that you lot will be able to speak, like I would hear you as well. I didn't know it was just text, but it's all good. I'd love to hear lots of voices. So yeah, you did. Is this for job interviews? And how have you found them so far, doing them? meet the maker kind of. Oh, what's that? I don't know what that is. So like with a panel. Oh, panel. Yeah, you said panel. Okay. Oh, panel interviews. Ha. There's a hard, you know. Okay, for ladies that talk about their craft. Yes. So I've done a few panel interviews. I did a tour, a university tour. We were going to 5 universities, and on each stop, we had a therapist, we had someone from the university, we had a young person there. And it was my first time doing that. And so some of the tips I can give is that everybody needs to be prepped as much as possible beforehand. Prep people as much as possible beforehand. The guests that are going to be on that panel. Let them know in that situation there, I would definitely let them know what the topic is and what the exact question is. Why? Because with a panel, the more equipped a person is with knowledge, the better it is for the audience. Because then the audience is getting nugget-sized, impactful, necessary information for that talk. Okay. So rather than them waffling, no. Let's condense that because you know what the question is, you know what the topic is. So give people questions, give people topics beforehand. Second tip I would definitely say is give ample time to everybody. Okay. So you might notice a question is being asked to only 2 people, but that one person really doesn't get much questions. Your job as an agile interviewer on the spot is to be able to think of a question that can bring them into the conversation. Because otherwise it just looks like, why are they there? Why that person doesn't really talk much. But no, you as an agile interviewer have to pay attention to the levels of talking, maybe who's talking too much sometimes, and who's not talking enough. And you've got to be able to balance those levels by your questions. All right. Somebody might ask a question and they might give it to the person who always talks. Cool. Pay attention to how much that person talks and then pass it on to someone else. And then third, I would say whoever you're going to pick, do not just pick them on the basis of, and it depends on what type of event you want to have, but don't just pick people based on their qualifications and their accolades. You also need people that can communicate their story and can communicate their lessons learned. Okay, so whoever you're going to pick, go and do a deep dive on their Instagram, their YouTube, wherever they speak. Go and look at how they speak. Are they engaging? And they don't have to be the most animated, but can they communicate their skills, their abilities, their lessons learned? Can they do that well? Because you need to be able to ensure that the panel that is up there gives the most to the audience that they can. So sometimes, that matters a lot. Can they communicate that in an effective way? All right. You might be doing something like this, and they're too technical. They're just using so much jargon, abbreviations. And you might say, I might need to find someone who's from that industry, but is a bit more able to just speak on a level. All right. Hope that helps. Cool. Is that the time already? What? Gosh, time goes fast when you're having fun. Do you guys have any more questions? If you have any questions, let me know. But yes, just to kind of let's do a quick. I'll do a quick exercise. Here's a question or a statement, shall I say? Imagine this is a statement from an interview, and I want you in the chat. Remember, we're talking about active listening, paying attention to what's said and what's not said. In the chat, I want you to write a follow-up question to the statements on the screen. So the first statement is, I left my corporate job to pursue my passion. Quickly, in the chat, write a follow-up question to that statement. You've paid attention to what's been heard. I left my corporate job to pursue my passion. What's your follow-up question? write it in the chat there. What made you think, oof, that's a question, Rebecca. Come on. I like that. What made you think this was the right time? That's a good question. I like that. What made you think this was the right time? Shia says, when did you realize it was time to leave? Yes. Because this is going to force somebody to pause and think. How did others respond to you making such a bold decision at the time, says Deborah. Yejide says, tell me more about this passion. That would make you leave your corporate job. Love it. Love it. Love these. Awesome. And again, this is a way for you to pull out the story, because you're actively listening to what is said, but now you're thinking, but what was not said? And you can see sometimes in the interviews when this happens, somebody will say this statement and the conversation just keeps on going. And you're thinking, I wish he would have asked. You have to be the interviewer that does that asks. Okay. All right, next one. I almost didn't show up for this interview today. Give me your follow-up question. I almost didn't show up for this interview today. What's your follow-up question? What was happening for you? I like that, Deborah. That one's very compassionate. That's a very compassionate question. A very welcoming. What was happening for you? And it's almost like it's not surface, it's internal. What was going on? I almost didn't show up for this interview today. Cool. Any more? And if my guest said this, I would welcome that. Because imagine at the start of you're about to start, you've prepped everything, and then your guest says, I almost didn't show up for this interview today. I'll be so happy, because it would actually mean we're actually going to hear something so different than what I planned. So different from what I planned. Rebecca says, glad you were able to make it, but what obstacles came up? And that one there is even more like, you can share if you want to, but you don't have to. Again, but it's still inviting. Jide says, what swayed your decision? Yes. What won it over? And that gives you a good indication of why they came and what they want to talk about. Zachariah says, so you said almost. Could you elaborate? Yes, love it. Again, if your guest says this at the start, all the questions you have planned, for the meantime, put that on pause and attend to what you've actively heard, because that could probably give you a richer interview than what you actually planned. All right, we have 1 minute left. If you would like to go 5 more minutes, let me know, but I do want to honor your time, because we said it's 12 to 12:50. So yeah, let me know in the chat if you want to do 5 more minutes, or if you need to leave right for 12:50, then you can do that. Happy to stay? Okay, cool. Okay, last one is, I've never actually talked about this publicly before. When a guest says this, wow, I've been in situations where guests have said this. Shola Amma, when we had Shola Amma, she talked about her addiction back in the day with drugs and cocaine. And she said, I've never actually talked about this publicly before. And I was like, what the hell? I had to put down what I was talking about. But well, tell me. And I just let her talk. Yes. So Zachariah says, what made you choose to talk about it? Yes. Deborah says, I love it when someone says this, even in a private one-to-one conversation. Let's go deeper then. Yeah, Jide, I love that. The caution part. Are you comfortable to talk about this here and now? I love that. Why? Because y there is over familiarity, and people can feel like they can tell you the world and then regret it later. So this is a nice way just to get a bit of consent. You know, I know you said you want to talk about it. Just know you don't have to. You don't have to. That just gives them reassurance. Rebecca says, we have an exclusive. Thank you for sharing, as this is a safe space. But what made you feel you're at a stage to talk about this now? And amazing, because then people can reflect on what has brought them to this moment. And it could just be growth. It could be maturation. It could be an incident that has happened off screen that nobody knows about, that has really shook their belief about life. And you're going to get that in the juiciness of this answer because you've actively listened. You haven't just bulldozed your way through, but you've took the time to give them the grace to lay the ground. And for them, again, it's all about the guest. It's all about them. And all you're doing is you're just massaging the area. You're just preparing the area for them to talk. And once they feel safe in that area, oh my gosh, you'll get the world. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I want to do one last thing, but I'll just recap just because of time. Listening shapes the conversation. Again, we've talked about this from the start. Actively listening. To be actively listening is to be an interviewer who is agile, meaning ready to move left or right in accordance to what they've heard. Okay. Active listening allows you to pick up on key details, emotions, unsaid thoughts that lead to a richer, more engaging conversation. Follow up. The follow up does make the difference because many interviewers miss that follow up. Okay. But if you're truly hearing what your guest is saying, you're able to craft something that matches the tone, matches the feel, matches their body language. When they relax back, you relax back. If they lean forward, you lean forward because you're matching what is being presented in the room. And then practice, 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 practice. I always encourage people when we do these sessions, take this skill into your real life. Go and talk to a friend. Go and talk to a neighbor and actively listen and then follow up. Actively listen. Talk to your child. Actively listen, then follow up. Why? The more it seeps into your normal life, the easier it is when you're interviewing someone because you naturally are just doing it. You just naturally do it. Okay? Okay. Cool. I have something I want. Actually, yeah. Is there any questions? Actually, let me double check if you have any questions at all. Just write them in the chat. Be happy to help. Any questions at all? Let me just get this up. No? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to end here. I just want to encourage you. Look, that I did create something to help with this type of thing. One of the hardest things that people do find is creating actual questions to ask people. So this is called Break the Ice. It's something that I created. It's just 15 questions that you can have and ask a guest. Very thought-provoking, deep diving questions. Again, not every question, not every interview has to be deep and emotional and wow. But you can use these questions to build your own. Okay. So scan this. This is Break the Ice. And you can purchase it and really help. Really help refine your interviews with the questions. All right. I'll put the link in the chat so you have it as well. Break the ice. And then the second thing is, if you want to, I've got an event where I'm going to be using this skill in real life, like in 4K. Like I said, the events that I run are called the Sit Down. And we're going to be doing a sit down with Mercedes Benson. She is an international DJ and also a fashion influencer, but also a creative strategist for different brands across the world. So if you want to come down, I'd love for you to come down and almost see it in 4K flesh, me doing it. And because you're here today, I got a discount code for you, and it's TSD5 off. So it's actually giving you £5 off. I'll put the link in the chat if you want it. Experience. And the code is TSD5 off. You can just get £5 off if you want to come down. All right. But I want to say a massive thank you. Last thing I'm just going to give you, as you know how we do it, is a what do you call it? Feedback. That's it. My brain just froze. Obviously, feedback just helps make it make sense for me, what I can change and everything. So I'll put the link here. I can actually find it. Hold on. Let me get it for you. Has this been good? Has this been helpful? That's the most important thing to me, that it actually makes sense and is helpful. That's the most important thing to me. Let me know in the chat. Also in the chat, just write a quick statement, what you've learned, like what sticks out to you. Is there anything in particular that sticks out to you? Let me know. And I'll just give you this link. Hold on. So sorry, guys. Just getting the link. So, here. Thank you. Very good. Time spent all fun again. The follow-up questions and being able to pivot. True. It's a skill, man. Big up to Kiki showing us as well. It's a skill. Apologies for the delay. I'm just getting this now. I'll put it in the chat, and then if you just leave your feedback. Listening to what's not being said. And you can do this with like your loved ones. This is the link for feedback. It's probably going to kick me out in a second. So I'll probably email this to you as well. But thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. Really, really, really enjoyed it. And I just really want you to just start applying it now. Just start literally take it today and just see how it works and plays out in your own personal life or even at work, right? Wishing you all the best. We'll probably do a few more of these over this month and the next few months. So keep engaged. You can find us at the Sitdown UK if you're not already following, but do follow. But until then, have a great one. The sun is actually out, which is shocking in the UK. So make sure you go for a walk after this and just breathe and de-stress. Thanks for your time. Take care and God bless. I've recorded this, so I'll send this out to you as well. All right. Take care. Peace out. How do I end it now? That awkward part. What do I do again? Gotta press this. See you later, guys.